Thank you very much, Chairperson. While the DG is still there, maybe before let me start there, Chairperson, I'm not happy with the response of the Minister. From where I'm sitting, the Minister has not responded to our questions in terms of how did he appoint the panel. And we all heard how the Minister was misinterpreting, not to mention misquoting, the act that should have guided him. And it is for that reason, Chairperson, that I would like to propose to this committee that we should take another step forward. I've written to the Minister. The Minister's response is extremely empty. I've observed how the Minister was responding to Honorable Mthethwa. It is the very same stinking attitude that our arts and culture practitioners are complaining about. When you listen to his response and you go through the response that he has delivered to the protesters, who are complaining, amongst other issues, about the irregularities that we're experiencing in this meeting. When you go through the response of the Minister, you'd realize that the Minister has forgotten that he's presiding over a public entity. When you are presiding in a public entity, every little step and decision that you are taking are going to hold you accountable. In the previous meeting, we had proposed that we must request a legal intervention or legal unit to intervene on this matter. And the intervention, we must correctly put it. The intervention that we need is what then happens when the Minister deliberately does not respond to your questions. Because every time we are here, we ask the Minister a question, the Minister will ask things that we are not responding to. So I'm not sure how we're going to approach this matter, because the appointment generally of the boards, not only this NVEVF, is highly questionable. And it is for that reason that I would not be comfortable interacting with the board, because their legitimacy is still under question. I'll rather raise my issues with those who have been dealing with the day-to-day administration of the foundation. That is my first issue. My second issue is that, Chairperson, we should be reaching out to as a portfolio, we will advise how do we approach this matter. We should begin to reach out to the president that has appointed this minister. It cannot be right that the person who oversees or presides over public funds will not want to be held accountable. When you try and hold him accountable, he'll give you a facial expression that, in a way, I want to interpret it as a person trying to intimidate you. Fortunately, some of us were not easily intimidated. I thought I must raise that part, Chairperson. Because all of these decisions that the minister has taken for the past 10, if not 12 months, they are found wanting in terms of the legal prescripts that guide whatever process that he has taken. I must mention that the decision of the minister to disband this foundation before, we had no reasons. He never presented reasons. Up until today, we still don't understand what are the reasons. The minister went on to deal with the appointment of the panel. I personally asked the minister, where do you get these people? Have you handpicked them? From where I'm sitting, I'm convinced that the minister has handpicked these people. And you cannot have a minister who would want to exercise his powers inconsistent with the Constitution. The Constitution of this country, central to the key pillars, is transparency. So I'm not sure you'll advise us on how we're dealing with this matter, because clearly all of these boards, their appointment process is highly questionable. And if all of these boards' appointments are highly questionable, then these boards must preside over the appointment of CEOs. It will then create a problem for the department. I want us to look at it from that angle. You see the board that we are questioning now, or that is having a dark cloud over its head, it's dealing with the process of appointing a CEO. What are the implications of that? It then means that you had a board that did not have the necessary local standing or legal standing point to oversee a process that they are not legitimate to oversee. If it happens, according to my face value analysis, that this board, its process of being appointed, including its parliament, it's highly questionable, and the minister is unable to present. In my letter I've sent to the minister, I've said to him, provide me with the academic background of each and every panel member and indicate which piece of legislation has guided you when you are appointing these people. The minister has failed to do that. And it's for that reason, Chairperson, I would want us to as a committee, resolved that all of these boards we must request legal unit to assist us in scrutinizing this process. Because in all honesty, I'm therefore convinced that the minister has picked panel members who were then expected to deliver a particular outcome that will be biased to a particular angle. That is my observation, and I stand to be corrected, and it is for that reason, Chairman. I'm going to get to my points. I thought it is important that I must raise this thing, because what we got here is a response of a toddler, not a minister. We're not expecting that response from a minister in terms of the process that we have followed. The reason I'm saying that is a toddler's response. How do you get a minister, practical example, saying that he has used section 6, subsection 2. When you go to that section, it speaks of a different story. That is my issue. DG, my question starts with you. Section, let me go to this section so that I cannot be on one thing like the minister. Let me go to section 13, subsection 4 of the Act. I would want to read it because there is a tendency of people misquoting it. Whenever the chief executive officer is absent for any reason or unable to carry out his or her duties, or whenever there is a vacancy in the office of chief executive officer, the council may, subject to such conditions and the payment of such remuneration and allowance as it may be determined in the manner contemplated in subsection 3. I'll go to subsection 3 because we must read them together. Appoint an employee of the foundation to act as the chief executive officer during such absence. Why, DG, didn't you correctly advise the minister in terms of this act? We are informed. That's the first question. Why didn't you advise the minister? Because I know part of your responsibility as the DG is to oversee processes in terms of administration. That's the first thing. Secondly, between today and the 3rd and the 2nd of September, who is acting? Thirdly, those who have been seconded, those that have been seconded from the department to the foundation, which piece of legislation has guided you and the minister in taking that decision? And kindly indicate if indeed you have advised the minister, because I'm a politician, sometimes I reject an advice from an administrator, but the administrator would have done his or her job of advising me accordingly. The last part, public services here, according to their report, their recommendations for the past 2, if not 3 financial years have not been implemented. I know you have just been appointed, but it's not as if you have not been part of the department for the past 2, if not 3 years. But I know at that time, I'll only ask for a year where you have acted as a DG. Let me refer to the previous financial year. Let me leave this other years because you are a DDG responsible for a particular unit. Can I just get clarity? I will then jump to the CFO. I want to engage the CFO.
Before you're going to get clarity from the DG, due to the Public Service Commission's responsibility pertaining to the administration practices and what you have mentioned, I will allow them a response to this matter.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just on the issue of board membership, it is important that we refer always to the King Code on governance matters to avoid conflicts of interest and excessive use of the same people in the boards, because there's a repetition of many people, the same people being appointed. The latter results in ineffective performance by board members, and conflicts of results can progress to acts of nepotism, maladministration, and corruption. There is case laws on these issues. Therefore, it is important to conduct due diligence before appointing people in these boards. Also, the executive should always have pushed through the values of transparency, accountability, and other values and principles that are based on the Constitution. That's our comment.
Thank you. No, Honorable Mteto, let me deal with Honorable Makgabo. Honorable, I'm going to give you, I want the momentum to stay. You know, if there's a flow in a soccer game, you don't change the players. The DG, yeah, we can change that. You can change the referee.
Thanks, Chair. The Section 13 of the NAVF Act indeed talks to the appointment of the Chief Executive Officer. And as a department, yes, we did advise Minister, and we even sought advice from National Treasury on the issue from the onset, from the time when the first acting DDG Chikwatamba, who was mentioned by Honorable Mteto, started acting. Now, the actions of the minister were not initiated in a vacuum. The minister acted and intervened in a space when the board of NAVF, through the chairperson of the board, wrote to the minister. Now, if you look at the Public Service Act, Section 15 of the Public Service Act, and also I believe there are public service regulations that are then specific to that. It allows the process of secondment that was followed by the minister. So basically, this was a response in terms of the board to the chairperson of the NAVF, indicating that while Section 13 of the Act prescribes around the appointment of an employee, they found themselves in a situation where they couldn't appoint anyone within that particular level who could be CEO. Hence, they wanted the intervention of the minister. So basically, that is what informed. We engaged even because it wasn't just NAVF. There were other entities that were in the same kind of a situation. We engaged with National Treasury, who also provided us with their own advice. And we sought also our legal opinion internally in the department.
While you're looking, DG, may I just ask the NFVF, were the board in agreement of writing to the minister?
Thank you, Honourable Chair, for the question. Yes, we were in item when it comes to that.
Thank you, DG.
I wanted to ask that the board also responds who's acting now, because we cannot intervene if there is nothing that's been initiated by the board. So I think that question best be responded to by Mr. Hatebe.
Yes, thank you, Chair, to you again. We had responded to that question, Chair. We said because the period of Dr. Machaba, who was the last acting in the interim, only expired 2 days ago when we were already airborne coming this side. We haven't interacted with the report, but we had a quick meeting virtually as the board and we've agreed to appoint a particular individual in terms of the section that Honorable Makgabo was just quoting now. From within the entity, there is somewhat that we haven't informed them and we haven't signed the documentation. As I say, we were airborne when the decision was made. But we do have somebody that would start effectively on Monday as the acting in the interim. I even said we've given ourselves the full 2 months of September and October so that we can then target the 1st of November for the new CE to then to start work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. In some of the documents I've read that someone's contract ends today. It was actually August, and then they said on the 5th. So I don't know, was it a kind of a carryover to come and assist report? Who was that individual?
The acting CE, the most recent one is Dr. Machaba. That's the one I'm talking about. And with her now having vacated the seat and gone back to DSEC, we met urgently a day or two ago, now I can't remember, but we then took a decision to appoint from internally one of the staff members to act. We haven't signed the documents with them, and that is why we haven't informed them as yet. Also, we didn't want the honorable members to think that it was a knee-jerk response from us simply because we're coming to appear today. But the process is that we have appointed in the duly constituted board, as we are empowered to do in terms of the enabling legislation. We will be signing the documents with the individual, and if they agree, then they can start on Monday so that there's no vacuum in between. Because, and the reason we do that, Chair, and we want to act swiftly is because not only the staff morale is affected by that, but even the industry is not very happy with us if there's no stability at the top, as it were. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Kumalo.
I just wanted to indicate that Dr. Machaba, who at that time had been seconded, we had to agree to her terminating that arrangement on the 2nd because she cited personal reasons, Chair, including a close person who is seriously unwell. So because she was commuting to Johannesburg to be acting as CEO, we had to agree to that. Just wanted to be specific on that one.
Your Honorable KGABO.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. The DG is claiming that they wrote a letter to Treasury and Treasury gave them a head up. They even wrote a letter to their legal unit. They gave them a head up. I will request the DG probably to provide us those letters that she has written now. If she can send those emails now, that proves that. And this is the reason why I'm a bit triggered to understand whether does the NFVF Act or the Public Service Act supersedes the NFV Act. That's where I'm caught up, because to me it does not make sense. We've got the NFVF Act that guides on the internal proceedings that has to do with that foundation. Maybe the PSC will advise us in this regard, and maybe the DG would also do not respond as to why did you not implement the recommendations of PSC on the 1 year. Let's leave the 2 years that I've spoken about. The reason why I'm raising this thing of powers is because of I'm not sure whether the department, their argument is that there was a leeway on the prescribed legislation, of which I don't see a leeway that speaks of what do you call this thing, Public Service Act being used to how would I put it? The Public Act in particular supersedes the NFV Act. I want you to clarify me on that part, because if you are then saying that you have used PSCA to deal with the secondment, and the argument is that for the appointment of the CEO or acting CEO, you must rely on people from within. Now you are saying that the PCA were granting you the powers. Now the question becomes, between the two, which one supersedes the other? I'll give you a practical example. The NFVVA Act, my apology, I'll get there. Yes, this foundation of films and videos, I think this one is simple. Yeah, this foundation of films and videos, its act cannot supersede the constitution of this country, or cannot contradict the constitution of this country. So my question is, are you saying that, and the PSC must advise, are you saying that the NFV, I mean, our people of videos and films, their powers are limited in such a way that the PSA could supersede its powers? Because you are then saying to me that instead of using section 13 subsection 4, you then had to rely on section 15 of the Public Service Act. And I'm trying to check that act, hence I was requesting you to give us those two letters. But over and above, PSC will advise us. Let me go to the CFO. I'm left with 2 questions, Chairperson. Then I can just wrap up quickly.
Yeah, in 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes. Okay, fine. Thank you very much, CFO. I want to check with you. You are saying that it does not take a a skyrocket scientist to get to clean audit. That's what you said. And what I want to say to you is that it takes internal controls to achieve that. And the Auditor General is complaining that part of the things that are appearing to be deficiencies in your entity is the internal controls. I want to check with you which key areas, because in terms of internal controls I've read, it speaks to you not being compliant with your financial management processes. And I don't want to conclude or suspect that you adopt a budget and deviate in terms of implementing. What are the key areas that the Auditor General has indicated? The second part that I want to check with you, Auditor General, CFO, your audit outcomes are the same for the past 2 years. Why? And why are you having PAAPs then you are still having the same outcome? The third part that I want to check is the composition of your finance unit. The fourth part that I want to check with you as the CFO, apart from why are you as a CFO, have you not yet established other streams of revenue because of your entity tells us you are grant reliant? 5, who's preparing your annual financial statements? The Auditor General says that there were misrepresentation or misstatements. If I were to use the AG letter, language, there were misstatements on and around your submission. Are you doing your AFS internally? If you're outsourcing them, how much are you paying and who are you outsourcing? And indeed, if you're outsourcing, that's why I was asking you about your finance department. Let me rather pause there. The last part that I wanted to check is the financial breakdown. Maybe let me start with your APPs. Chairperson, I think in my view, these APPs, DG, they are far from reality. And this is let me qualify my statement. In terms of impact evaluation, when you are giving us grants, you should be able to demonstrate as a department that after I've intervened in this small dorpy with these grants, this is what I've managed to achieve. This is the number of script writers that I've managed to produce. It becomes a target, it becomes measurable. Now, when you look at some of these APPs, GDG, it does not speak to what we want to achieve in terms of unlocking grassroots development of your film industry. It does not speak to what we want to achieve of preserving our indigenous language through this film and video. Now, I want to check with you in terms of your APPs. What impact, according to you, have we achieved in the past 2 years, if not 3 years? I think I'll stop there before I confuse you and end up confusing myself. Thank you very much, DG. And my apology. Welcome to the department, DG.
We already welcomed the DG. Is there a response? After response, I will then ask Honorable Potgieter, CFO.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Honorable KGABO, for the questions. So the last time the NFVF received a clean audit was in the 25-16 financial year. So it is achievable. And in 2019-20, we received a qualification, predominantly because of the issues around the grant management accounting. So ever since then, honourable members, we've been able to turn around the controls around the management of grants, especially the provisions, wherein previously our funding schedule used to be on an Excel spreadsheet. So we have now automated that, honourable members, so that the grant funding schedule that we use in order to account for all the grants that are still to be paid to our filmmakers. It aligns with our financial system, which is SAGE. So hence I had indicated then that during this current financial year, we didn't have any findings raised by the AG pertaining to the issues of grant provisions. So what the AG had raised, and I think Honorable Muthetwa raised this, was the issue of material misstatement, wherein we had to restate our previous financial year's figures in order to make provision for the grants that had been forfeited. So, for example, Honorable KGABO, when we fund a filmmaker, and we say to them, we're funding you R1 million, please go and raise 2 million elsewhere. Sometimes they do not, raise that money. So ultimately what happens is that they will then forfeit the grant that has been offered to them, because we give you 2 years, that is 24 months, in order for you to deliver your project. And if you fail to do that, you forfeit that allocation, because then it goes back to the fiscus. So you will find that almost every year we will have to revisit our financial statements to take into account some of those funding that had been forfeited. So you are correct, Honorable KGABO. Internal controls are needed, and we have done quite well in terms of enhancing those controls. But as I've indicated, you asked about the structure of finance. You've got a CFO, you've got a finance manager, you've got an accountant, you've got a finance officer, and then you've got colleagues in supply chain and ICT. So I am the only person who is permanent, and the PA, and the finance manager is on a temporary contract basis, and so is the finance officer, and so is the temp accountant. So as a result, then you'll have to depend on additional support in order to enhance the capacity internally. So as I've indicated, once the organizational review process has been finalized and there is stability in the organization, we think we'll be in a position to stabilize the entity. Hence, we have indicated that our target for the 25-26 is to achieve the clean audit, so that there is no recurrence of the audit findings. But the achievement of that is dependent, obviously, on colleagues that are permanent in the institution, because then you are able to performance manage them, you are able to hold them accountable, unlike when you've got colleagues who are on a temporary basis, they've got one foot in and another foot out. So the financial statements are prepared internally, and then going forward, once we have stabilized, there will not be any need for us to depend on contractors. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, CFO. Can we label you as a patient that is in ICU or what?
Family, we're back again. Now let's talk about McKenzie and Honorable KGABO, which is the MP, whose vice is GAYTON McKenzie. Like McKenzie, the way he responded in Parliament to the MPs, it seemed not like he respects them, because they're not happy at all. KGABO just said it a mouthful. That shows that they're not happy about Arts and Culture's Minister, the Sports, Arts and Culture Minister, GAYTON McKenzie, who seem not to take his job serious and do not understand that he's working for the people. I think it's time that he has to understand that in each and everything that is done in his department, he has to account to Parliament, because at times they have to know exactly as to what is happening within all the ministries. It's not about only his ministry. They summon any ministry to come into Parliament to account for whatever they feel like there's something that is not going right. So if GAYTON McKenzie decides to do things his way, I don't think he will succeed in his job. And because when people rise, more especially the MPs, when they tell you exactly what is wrong and you don't want to listen, they can end up doing a lot of things, because those are lawmakers. But if you cannot account to them, how can you account to the people that you are serving, Mr. Gayton? Have some kind of understanding. I think it's very important to have people around you who will help you, counsel you, and advise you, and as to how to respond to such questions when you get to Parliament. You don't just jump and just maybe have that kind of look that they're complaining about, that in Parliament you've got an intimidating look. Anyway, I don't know about that, but it's what KGABO has just said. So just be careful. I think the minister should be careful, because more especially they want to take his case further, and he will not feel comfortable with that. But instead of coming to the committee and just respond to them accordingly, then we can then say, oh, GAYTON McKenzie did this, so he did respond so and so. But if you decide not to do it, Mackenzie, it's up to you. But the MPs will hold you accountable, because they have all the powers to do that. So that would be my advice to GAYTON McKenzie. Let's continue fixing our country and upload where it's necessary, more special for what is happening in Parliament, as they do sometimes interrogate different kind of ministries. I'll say that is it. And if you the first time coming to this channel, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And I'm looking forward to bring more content as we go on. Bravo, bravo, bravo.